covered the first chapter from this book, Ways of Seeing, and we raised several issues either in the article or other issues that the article does not cover. So today I would like to again highlight some other points and then move to the next topic in your readings, which is chapter 5, dedicated to how things in painting and in images are always a reflection of a viable word. Before we do that, I'd like briefly to go back to what we covered last time. Briefly, we started saying that a child sees, or seeing comes before words. A child learns to see things before to call them by name or to describe them by words. And this is something that accompanies us all our life. Even if we become adults, the first source of knowledge is a visual knowledge. So you see things around you, and then you try to define them. Particularly when you travel, let's say, abroad, or maybe when you go to a place for the first time, a place you have never seen or read about. And so you just see things. You don't read them. You don't analyze them by words, but the first thing you do is looking at them and trying to define what objects they are and what they mean, etc. So visual language and visual knowledge is still accompanying us all our life. Okay? So that's a very important thing. The other thing that John Berger raises in this first article is how paintings are also related to history. When a work of art is produced, particularly when it is a painting, we are here dealing with visual arts. When a work of art is produced, it's also recording history. So, if I asked you, for example, to describe or to make a film about, let's say, 16th century England, how can you make that film without some archives? You know archives?
Yes.
It's archives. Archives. You need archives. Sometimes these archives are books that you find in let's say, libraries, or sometimes in some special places. But sometimes you simply need images. And these images could be paintings. So the paintings can teach you what 16th century England looked like. Your film becomes easier to make because you have some images to relate to. For example, and do this when you go home, try to Google Moroccan scenes in Orientalist painting. Okay, Moroccan scenes or Moroccan interiors in Orientalist painting. So when you do this research about Moroccan interiors, that is the inside of a house, the inside of a room, a terrace, etc., you will find a lot of very precious information about Morocco in the 19th century, Morocco at the very beginning of the 20th century, as it was depicted and painted by some Orientalist painters, who were European painters, either living in Morocco or visiting Morocco, etc. So these works are a real history recorded in such paintings. And this is actually the historical dimension and the documentary dimension of art. It's not simply about impressions and emotions, but it could also be a testimony of a period or of a history. So do this research and you will learn a lot about how Moroccan interiors were decorated, and how today they are completely different. Painting, therefore, has this precious role, which is to record history. John Berger also teaches us something quite interesting about history, which is who is recording what. Because sometimes history is actually histories, not only one history, but histories. Only one history is documented and only one history is recorded. It is the history of the powerful, the history of those who can produce meaning and who can paint, who can tell narratives. So when you are dealing with paintings that record history, you are actually dealing with some people who had the power, the privilege, the know-how, etc., to record history. And therefore, our duty today as readers of paintings in the past is also to be aware of the so many possible other histories. An example, when you go to European painting, most of it is dedicated to, let's say, lords, kings, landowners, princess, etc., etc. Never very ordinary people. Never. Does it mean that ordinary people have never existed in this history? No, they did, but they were not recorded. Therefore, painting is also ideology. This is something that John Berger also raises in his first section. Another interesting thing that John Berger in his first section raises is the arrival of the camera and of the movie camera. So, with the arrival of the movie camera, particularly in the 19th century onwards, the precious role of painting diminished. And all of a sudden, a new means of expression, more technical, more precise, almost replaced the canvas, almost replaced painting. So what was the revolutionary nature of the camera as far as painting is concerned? In what way has the camera revolutionized our ways of seeing? The article speaks about that.
The camera can watch movements and they can focus on specific time and watch carefully. Whereas in painting, there is no movement.
Indeed.
The camera makes the painting available everywhere, I mean, at different sizes and forms.
The camera has changed the pictures in it, which can be manipulated, and also it changes its value, and the picture is transmitted.
Right, all images can be manipulated. All images, not only that of the movie camera. But if you go to page 17,
the painting reflects what we present just once, but the camera more.
Page 17, you have a very good example of the new role of the camera. And the author calls it Still from Men with a Movie Camera by Vertov. So this is a particular frozen moment in a film where a man is filming the crowd. And of course, if we had this film here, we would probably see so many people moving around and a lot of hustle and bustle, which is indeed something that the movie camera can do, and the painting cannot do. But apart from that, John Berger also speaks about something quite interesting, which is the perspective. The camera has introduced a new perspective. What is it?
The camera gives when we take a movie camera, we can see more than one perspective. In the painting, we see the perspective of the one of the painter, of the artist. Unlike the camera, we can see all the faces, all the scene in one.
Indeed. Or what is the difference between the movie camera and the painting as far as this perspective is concerned? Can you compare?
Maybe the absence of eyes in camera.
No, even in camera, it's an artistic language, no?
Paintings are still and constant.
Where? Paintings are still, while the movie camera is moving. Free from time and space, maybe. In other words, when you take a painting like this, we can call it a still image. And it's a fixed image. That is produced by one person from one perspective. You see, this is the image, and you are here. So you can see only one perspective that the painter once produced. If, for example, the painter was attracted by Mona Lisa's eyes, he would focus essentially on her eyes. And we will also focus on her eyes because this is the only perspective that the Mona Lisa provides us with. With the movie camera, we have so many possible perspectives as an audience. When you are watching, let's say, moving images, you can probably see a man, or a woman, or the street, or a dog, or an object. You can see so many things from different perspectives. So this is what really distinguishes the camera from painting. In other words, the multiplicity of perspectives. This, again, according to Lerner, is something similar to two, let's say, artistic schools called Impressionism and Cubism. And I would like you to read a few lines about these before we explore them in detail. Now, please read from page 18. 18. This is not to say that before. Someone in the middle, yes, sir?
This is not to say that before the invention of camera and the way that everyone could see everything. But perspective organized visual films and some targeted in this area. Every drawing or painting that used perspective proposed to the spectator that he was the unique center of the world. The camera, and more particularly the movie camera, demonstrated that there was no center.
You see, with the movie camera there was no center. There were actually so many possible angles and perspectives. Carry on, please.
The invention of camera changed the way men saw. The visible came to mean something different to them. This was immediately reflected in painting.
Right, so this is again how the camera revolutionized our way of seeing. Our way of seeing indeed has changed from painting to camera because the camera gives us more liberty to see things from different perspectives. Today, if we compare what happened in the very beginning of the 20th century with the creation of the movie camera to the smartphones, we can say that this is exactly what's happening today. Today, every one of you can become a photographer or a filmmaker, and every one of you can produce a given image of reality. It could be a selfie, it could be any specific object you believe is precious and important, and therefore the smartphone and the selfie in particular almost teaches us the same thing, that today we can see things from so many different perspectives. It's almost, I would say, an atomized, the atoms broken into pieces. It's almost an atomized way of seeing. Today we are indeed experiencing an atomized way of seeing, because every one of us has a camera, and every one of us can film or can capture images according to that particular moment. Carry on to reach this notion of impressionism and cubism.
For the impressionist, the visible no longer presented itself to man in order to be seen. On the contrary, the visible in continual flux became figurative. For the cubist, for the cubist, the visible was no longer what confronted a single eye, but the totality of possible views taken from points all around the objects or person being depicted.
Right. Now, this technical innovation called the movie camera was also achieved by these two schools, called the Impressionistic School and the Cubist School. We learn again from Berger and also from art history that Impressionism, for the Impressionists, the visible no longer presents itself to man in order to be seen. On the contrary, the visible is continual flux, became fugitive. That is, with the Impressionistic school, any image you take is not itself what counts. What counts most is the impressions we apply on it. So the object does not matter at all. If, for example, you are painting the countryside, it's not the countryside itself which is important, but how the countryside will create in you a lot of impressions, a lot of perspectives. Go to page 27. So, the bottom, we have a picture by Van Gogh, where he is painting a corn or a wheat field with crowds. And we learn later that this is the last painting he produced before he committed suicide. Now, this painting actually is not only a field where there are, let's say, birds flying and weeds, etc. But it's more than that. It's indeed some impressions of life and death. This is what Impressionism tells us. It tells us that images are not images, but they are impressions, feelings. That is, many perspectives. No realism at all, no accuracy. Everything is simply a question of impressions. The same again notion of perspective is produced by the Cubists. The Cubists did not want to show real images. They did not want to show real images, but rather we learn For the cubist, the visible was no longer what confronted the single eye, but the totality of possible views taken from points all around the object being depicted. That is, we don't care about the real image, but we care rather about all these possible angles from which we can see the image. Example. I may say that this is a human body, even if it does not really look like a human body. But the cubists told us this is a human body because you can see it from so many possible angles. It's you who create meaning. It is your way of seeing that creates meaning. To conclude, perspective has developed a lot. From classical painting to the movie camera, to the impressionistic, to the cubist, all these have tried to tell us the same thing, that images are not only realistic images, but there are so many other possible ways of seeing. The last thing to cover in this first article is what John Berger calls originality. Okay, originality. Go to page 21, please, and read with me what he says, and then we will discuss it. And someone, please, from the very beginning, having seen this reproduction, etc.
Having seen this reproduction, one can go to the National Gallery to look at the original and discover what reproduction likes. Alternatively, one can forget about the quality of the reproduction and simply be reminded when one sees the original that it is a famous painting of which somewhere one has already seen a reproduction. But in either case, the uniqueness of the original now lies in it being the original of a reproduction. It is no longer what the images show that strikes one as unique. Its first meaning is no longer to be found in what it says, but in what it is. The new status of the original status of the original work is the perfectly rational consequence of the new means of reproduction. But it is at this point that a process of classification again enters. The meaning of the original work no longer lies in what it uniquely says, but in what it uniquely is. How is its unique existence evaluated and defined in our present culture? It is defined as an object whose value depends upon its rarity. This value is affirmed and gauged by the price it fetches on the market. But because it is nevertheless a work of art, and art is thought to be greater than commerce, its market price is said to be a reflection of its spiritual value. Yet spiritual value of an object as distinct from a message or an example, one can only be explained in terms of magic or religion. And since in modern society neither of these is a living force, the art object with the work of art is enveloped in an atmosphere of entirely bogus religiosity. Works of art are discussed and presented as though they were holy relics. Relics which are first and foremost evidence of their own survival. The past in which they originated is studied in order to prove their survival genuine. They are declared art when their line of descent can be certified.
Thank you very much. So maybe you need to read this again and again to probably understand everything, but to simplify what John Berger is trying to say here, and to explain it differently, he raises this question, first of all, of originality. What makes a work of art an original work of art? Why do we today pay a lot of money to buy a Picasso or to buy Farid Belkahia or others? Is it because this work is technically so sophisticated, or is it because of some other reasons? How could you explain this notion of originality, this notion of value?
Its originality, I guess, is related because of the painter that painted it is, I mean, it's honor. But in the other forms, it's just a form of reproduction, which means it qualities its uniqueness, I guess.
We are speaking here about the unique works, not the ones that are reproduced in many replicas. We're only speaking about unique works.
I think Robert here is just trying to say that the originality of a painting lies in the fact that we know it is the original picture, that we know that Picasso is the one who painted it.
And what's more than knowledge?
Its value in money.
And what's more than financial value?
Uniqueness.
Yeah, I mean, you can just follow the list of arguments. You didn't finish reading? Right. So, indeed, this is what John Berger is trying to say. He tries to say that some works are considered original, not replicas, or not fake, not just reproductions, because they are unique. There is only one copy of Mona Lisa. You can't find any other copy of Mona Lisa elsewhere. It's only one copy. Even if you try today to reproduce the same work, it's impossible. So this is why it is considered an original work, because it dates back to a past, it dates back to a very talented painter, Leonardo da Vinci, and he produced only one copy. But apart from that, John Berger also introduces something quite significant. Today, these works are precious because of their market value. If you want to buy a Mona Lisa or to buy any, let's say, Van Gogh or any Picasso or Dali or others, you need to be very, very rich. Without a lot of money, you can't buy such works. So these works are original and are unique also because they are expensive and because they have market value. So today, if you own Picasso, it's as if you own a bank, or even more than a bank, because a bank can probably have financial problems and become bankrupt, but a Picasso can never lose its value. Whenever you want to sell it, you will get more. Berger also introduces something quite interesting that he calls it the spiritual value or the religious almost value of these original works. For him, today, we celebrate